Hello everyone, how's it going? This is R. Gilliard here, and today I'm here to talk about another topic that I've been wanting to discuss with you all. The age of the diesels. For all of you know that in 37 years of airing, Thomas and Friends was about a fleet of steam engines who work on Sir Topham Hatt's railway to please him, but they also work very hard to try not to be replaced with modern machines. When it comes to being replaced, all the engines know the one word that they always shiver down their boilers: scrap. We recall that scrap is a death sentence for steam engines on the other railway. Steam engines on the other railway are withdrawn from service and scrapped to make way for newer up-to-date diesels that we all know. And sometimes when it comes to scrap, it usually focuses on the steam engines and their fear of being replaced. And of course, some engines on the other railway are lucky enough to escape from the cutter's torch. Engines like Oliver and Stepney, who were saved in the nick of hands by Sir Topham Hatt and his engines most of the time. But there are some instances where steam engines are not only scrapped, but other vehicles too. There was an episode where Trevor was outdated and was planned to be scrapped, but thanks to Edward and the Vicar, he was now back in service. And Thomas and Percy managed to rescue an old coach from the nick of time before she was broken up, and restored her to a workman's hut. And that's why, in one of my topics, is we're discussing that scrap not only affects steam engines and other vehicles, but it also affects even the newest diesel engines today. So without further ado, let's begin. You may recall before Away from the Sea when Salty was built in the early 60s and was prone to having more spluttering engines than before. Out of fear from being away from the sea, Salty persuaded to keep working even with his broken engine. But when Sir Topham Hatt brought Porter the new dock engine to help out, Salty was left in fear that Porter might replace his jobs at Brendam Docks. But when going through maintenance work, as well as a few accidents involving his desperation of being away from the sea, Salty learned that Sir Topham Hatt wasn't planning to send him away from the sea or have him replaced by Porter, but instead agreed to have them both work together at Brendam Docks. And this episode goes to show you that Salty is one of the few diesels who could empathize with the steam engines, that even diesels were breaking down as much as the steam engines were, and can be replaced by other engines quite easily. After Diesel had bumped into Daisy for saying hello, although not in a polite way, Daisy's springs had finally been unbalanced, and she couldn't move the right way along the line as she used to. The workers didn't have enough springs or didn't know how to mend a diesel rail car's springs rightly. There were concerns that Daisy was to be scrapped, much to the diesel's disdain. That was until Percy arrived with a carload full of springs from the mainland, and with her new springs, Daisy was put back in service on the Arsburg West, and even Diesel apologized to change his ways. This episode does not just showcase Daisy's first episode of her springs being unbalanced and broken, but also the first where scrap came into the mind of diesel engines. It also gave Arian Bort more time to remorse over a fellow diesel, and know what it's like to be part of a steam engine's history too. Another episode to show where even the diesels age is Emily and the special coaches. After taking Gordon's coaches, Diesel speeds across the island of Sodor, but causes his generator to feel worn out at the time. Even though he sided with the idea of steam engines being scrapped, Diesel empathized with the idea that even he was going into history along the railway. But that doesn't mean most of steam engines of Sodor feel remorseful and sorry for him. After a word with Sir Topham Hatt, Emily delivers a flatbed with a new generator for the worn-out and distressed Diesel. This This episode shows once again that even diesel engines can become as old as steam engines and need new parts to keep them running. But boy, did that diesel engine feel much bigger than diesel, I might add. Probably continuity, but you know. And lastly, Rusty to the rescue. As you can all tell, Rusty travels to the other railway, but there is something that piques my interest. When Rusty arrives there, he becomes shocked and sees what the other railway is like. The network was changed, the diesels started to take over, and the steam engines were left on cold, damp sidings to wait to be scrapped. On the Skarloey Railway, Rusty is friendly and gets along with everyone on the railway, especially steam engines like Skarloey and Peter San. But when other engines misjudge him, he gets over it and proceeds to help them out on even the most dangerous situations they occur in. But when he reaches the other railway, he could totally understand what it means to be on a steam engine's weighted history. He also saves Stepney and his crew from an awaited fate. This shows that you can help others that aren't the same as you are. And Rusty to the Rescue is one of the few episodes where even diesels can show their heroism of steam engines, including Toby's tightrope. So in conclusion, even though the series mainly focuses on the steam engines' lives of being replaced, there are some hints where even the diesels can side up with of being history too, even if some are very well against steam engines, like Diesel and Diesel 10. Well, that's all for today's video, folks. Be sure to like, subscribe, or leave a comment for anything I missed. And be sure to be on the lookout for my planned series for Tug's second series and third series onwards.